The millionaire's ex-wife. A shocking encounter that changed everything. He was dining alone, a millionaire used to getting his way, when he saw her. His ex-wife. And with her, 3 girls who looked exactly like him. Before we dive in, let us know in the comments where you are watching from. Enjoy the story, and don't forget to like this video. Comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel for more incredible stories. On a typical Tuesday night in Manhattan, Charles Sterling, in his bespoke Italian shoes, walked into the Eden, a high-end restaurant on the Upper East Side. The maitre d' greeted him with a familiar nod. "Your usual table is ready, Mr. Sterling," Javier said, leading him to a corner table with a view of Central Park. A young sommelier approached with the wine list, but Charles waved him off. "The usual Bordeaux, please, Thomas." As Thomas went to fetch the wine, Charles idly scrolled through his phone. 3 missed calls from his mother. Probably another attempt to set him up with someone. She still hadn't forgiven him for letting Aurora go 9 years ago. The memory of Aurora Castillo still stung like a paper cut, small but sharp, making itself known when he least expected it. He was about to check his emails when a sound caught his attention. A familiar laugh that sent shivers down his spine. A laugh that haunted his memories, the one that used to wake him up on quiet Sunday mornings. He instinctively turned his head towards the sound, and the world seemed to stop. There, being led to a table on the other side of the restaurant, was Aurora. Her chestnut hair, now cut just below her shoulders, fell in elegant waves and still moved with the grace that had captivated him back in their university days. She wore a dark green dress that enhanced the sparkle in her eyes, even from that distance. But it wasn't just her presence that took his breath away. Next to her, walking like small reflections of their mother, were 3 girls. All shared Aurora's chestnut hair, and as they got closer, Charles could see his own gray eyes in them. They looked to be about 9 years old. It wasn't hard to do the math. Charles's hand clenched on the edge of the table so hard that his knuckles turned white. One of the girls carried a book and walked with her head down, almost bumping into a waiter. Another observed everything around her with an insatiable curiosity, noticing every detail as if memorizing it forever. The third walked tall, with an impeccable posture that painfully reminded Charles of his own mother. He watched, paralyzed, as they sat down at a table just 2 sections away from his, so close that he could hear snippets of their conversation. So close that it was impossible for Aurora not to notice him. Thomas returned with the wine, but Charles barely registered his presence. His mind raced with memories. The last time he saw Aurora, their final argument about him taking over the family company instead of venturing out together. How she had disappeared without a trace afterward. He had tried to find her, but she had changed her number, moved away, and her family had closed ranks. Now he understood why. One of the girls, the curious one, was already looking at him, tilting her head slightly, as if trying to solve a puzzle. He could see his own reflection in her gaze, and it made his heart race. The weight of what he had lost, of what he had never known, threatened to crush him if he got up and left. Should he confront her? Should he pretend he hadn't seen them? 9 years of business training, of making million-dollar decisions in seconds, and none of it had prepared him for this moment. Then Aurora looked up, and their eyes met across the restaurant. Charles's face paled, and the menu he was holding slipped from his hands, clattering against the fine china. For what seemed like an eternity, neither of them moved. The bustle of the restaurant faded away, leaving only the sound of Charles's heart pounding in his ears. The curious girl, he couldn't help but think of her as his daughter now, tugged on Aurora's sleeve and whispered something that brought her back to reality. "Mom, why does that man look so much like the picture in your memory box?" The girl's voice was clear enough for Charles to hear, and each word felt like another crack in the wall he had carefully built around his past. Aurora quickly regained her composure. Years of keeping it together, her experience as a high school drama teacher, were evident. "Camilla, honey, please focus on choosing something to eat." But her hands trembled slightly as she picked up the fallen menu, and Charles could see her chest rising and falling rapidly, a sure sign of her nervousness. The bookish daughter was eyeing her novel, A Wrinkle in Time, and looked at him with an intensity that reminded him of seeing himself in a mirror. The third girl, the one with perfect posture, whispered something to her sisters that made them all giggle, although their mother's face remained tense. Charles left his wine untouched, the condensation beating on the glass like the sweat forming on his palms. 1,000 questions swirled in his head. Why hadn't she told him? How could she have kept it from him? What were their names? Did they know anything about him? The weight of 9 years of missed bedtime stories and first days of school pressed on his chest. His phone vibrated. Another call from his mother. If she only knew he was a grandfather of triplets. The idea almost made him laugh at the absurdity of it all. His mother, who had been insisting on grandchildren for years, had 3 she had never met. Javier approached Aurora's table with his typical gesture, and Charles could hear him greet them. "Ah, Mrs. Castillo, welcome back." And to the young ladies, Camila, Valeria, and Sophia. "What a pleasure to see you again. You're regulars." How had he not run into them before? The names resonated in his mind. Camila, Valeria, Sophia. He associated them with what he had observed. Camila must be the curious one. Valeria, the reader, and Sophia, the perfect lady. They were beautiful names, just the unique and meaningful choices he would expect from Aurora. He had always been fascinated by how nature and humanity intertwine, always dreamed of names that told stories. "Mom!" Valeria's voice was softer than Camilla's, but just as clear. "Isn't that the man from your old business plan? The one in the coffee shop picture?" Aurora blushed, and Charles remembered their shared dream, a chain of artistic coffee shops called Castillo Blanco that would blend her creativity with his business acumen. The plan. They had spent countless nights perfecting that dream, which dissolved when he decided to take over the family company's stores. Sophia, always serene, meticulously aligned her silverware and spoke with poise. "Mother, I believe it would be impolite to stare, even if he does bear a striking resemblance to us." Aurora cut her off, her voice tense but polite. "Please, let's just enjoy our celebratory dinner." Celebration? Charles's mind was racing. What were they celebrating? Had he missed a birthday or an achievement? How many other celebrations had he missed? He found himself standing without consciously deciding to. He felt like his legs were made of wood. As he took the first step towards the table, he saw Aurora's eyes widen and her hand instinctively reach out, as if to protect her daughters. Their daughters. Thomas appeared at his side. "Sir, is everything all right with the wine?" Charles barely heard him. 9 years of leading board meetings had taught him to make decisions with firmness. Even though his inner world was crumbling, each step towards the table felt like walking through a deep current. But he kept moving forward. He needed to know. He needed to understand. The girls watched him approach, each with a different expression. Camilla's evident curiosity, Valeria's perceptive assessment over her book, and Sophia's observant calm. 3 distinct versions of his own face looked back at him, mixed with Aurora's features in a way that made his heart ache. Aurora stood up just as he reached their table, placing herself in front of the girls in an instinctive protective gesture. Up close, he could see that the years had treated her well. She was even more beautiful than he remembered, with small lines around her eyes that indicated a life filled with laughter he hadn't been a part of. "Charles," she said, her voice barely audible, but still with that musicality that had always made him smile every morning. Now, it tied a knot in his chest filled with regret. "Aurora," he managed to say, though his voice sounded foreign to him. Then, unable to stop himself, he looked at each of the girls. And Camila, Valeria, and Sophia. The silence that followed was deafening. Camila was the first to break the tension, leaning forward over the table despite Sophia's disapproving look. "So, you're him, the man from the coffee shop plants. Mom keeps them at home." "Camila," Aurora warned, her voice trembling slightly. The restaurant continued its elegant dance of waiters and quiet conversations, oblivious to the emotional earthquake unfolding at their table. "Please," Charles said, his voice raw with emotion. "May I sit down?" He gestured to an empty chair at their table, his eyes fixed on Aurora's face. She hesitated, then nodded slightly and leaned back in her seat. Valeria carefully marked her place in her book and set it aside. Her gray eyes, the same as his, watched him with an intensity that tightened his throat. "Mom says you're very good at business," she said matter-of-factly. "She uses your company's success as a case study in her economics class." Charles raised his eyebrows, looking at Aurora. "Economics?" A slight blush colored her cheeks. "I now teach business and drama at Wellington High. The students really respond to real-world examples." Sophia, even more upright, added, "Our mother is the youngest department head. She's very talented." A protective pride filled Charles's voice. Someone had taught these girls to look after their mother, to be her champions. Someone who wasn't him. "That doesn't surprise me," he said softly, remembering how Aurora had always been the smartest person in any room, even if she never showed it. "You always had a gift. For teaching, for helping people discover their potential." "How did she do it with you?" Camila asked innocently, although there was nothing innocent about how the question made Aurora pale. Memories flooded him. Aurora staying up late to help him study for his business finals, her brilliant suggestions during his internship presentations, how she had always pushed him to think big, to dream bolder, until he had chosen the safe path instead of their shared dream. "Yes," he answered honestly, looking directly at Aurora. "Exactly like that." A waiter approached their table, hesitated at the obvious tension, and then cleared his throat. "Shall I add anything else, madam?" "Sterling?" Before Aurora could answer, Sophia intervened with perfect social grace. "Yes, please. Today we are celebrating our academic achievements, and it seems appropriate that all interested parties be present." She emphasized the last words in such a way that Charles wondered how much these girls knew about him. "Academic achievements?" he seized the opportunity to ask. Valeria smiled slightly. "We each received a special recognition. I won the regional science fair with my project on sustainable urban agriculture." Camila almost bounced in her seat. "I got the lead role in the school play. It's The Wizard of Oz. I'm playing Dorothy." "And I," said Sophia proudly, "was elected the youngest student body president in the school's history." Charles felt like he had been punched in the stomach. They were so accomplished, so brilliant, so much like him and Aurora in different ways. His eyes burned as he looked at Aurora. "They're incredible," he murmured. "They are," she agreed softly, and then added, a hint of steel in her voice. "They already had everything they needed." The unspoken words hung in the air. They didn't need you. But looking at these three extraordinary girls, his daughters, Charles wasn't so sure anymore. The waiter returned with the silverware, and as he placed it down, Charles noticed something that chilled him to the bone. In Valeria's book was a familiar leather bookmark, one he had given Aurora years ago, engraved with her favorite quote. "Some infinities are bigger than other infinities." She had kept it. All this time. She had kept it, and now her daughter was using it, probably without knowing its significance. How many other parts of him had Aurora woven into her daughter's lives without them knowing? "Mr. Sterling," Sophia said formally, pulling him from his thoughts. "Since you are joining our celebratory dinner, perhaps you would also be interested to know about our plans for the future. We have been very strategic in our approach to high school." High school. The words hit him like stones. His daughters were planning their future, and he barely knew them. The weight of everything he had lost pressed down on him, threatening to crush him completely. The waiter arrived with the menus, offering a momentary reprieve from the tension. Charles watched as each girl handled the menu differently. Valeria methodically evaluating the options, Camila flipping through the pages with enthusiasm, and Sophia carefully examining the wine list, despite being too young to order. "The coca oven is excellent here," Charles commented automatically, and then realized he was giving menu suggestions to his own daughters, as if they were colleagues. The absurdity of the situation threatened to overwhelm him. "It's Mom's favorite dish," Camila said cheerfully. "She always orders it on special occasions." She paused, tilting her head. "Did you know that? Is that why you're ordering it too?" Aurora's hand tightened on her water glass. "Camila, remember what we've discussed about asking personal questions." "But Mom," Camila protested, "you always say that knowledge is power, and Mr. Sterling seems to know a lot about you. Besides, he has the same gray eyes as us, and the same furrow between his eyebrows when he thinks hard, just like Sophia when she prepares her speeches for student council." Valeria looked up from the menu, her analytical mind piecing things together. "And he has the same habit of touching his left fist when he's nervous, just like me during science presentations." "Girls," Aurora's voice was strained. "Please no," Charles intervened softly. "They deserve answers." He looked at each girl in turn, then at Aurora. "They deserve the truth." "The truth." Sophia's voice was cautious, measured. "About why your picture is in Mom's memory box. About why she keeps the old Castillo Blanco business plans in her desk drawer. About why she always gets quiet on Father's Day." Aurora fell completely silent, and Charles felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. He hadn't known about Father's Day, hadn't known she still thought about then. Or perhaps, Sophia continued with the same precision, about why Mom accepted that teaching position at Wellington High 9 years ago, even though it was on the other side of the country from where he was building his company. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. Wellington High was in Seattle. That's why he had never seen them here. They must be in New York for a special occasion. The regional science fair, the school play, the student council position. These weren't just common achievements. They were the reasons they had returned to the city where it had all begun. "You moved to Seattle," he said quietly, looking at Aurora. "That's why I could never find you." "I had to," she whispered, and for the first time he saw tears in her eyes. "You had chosen your path. I had to choose mine." "Without telling me anything about them?" The words came out sharper than he intended, and he saw the 3 girls flinch slightly. "You made it very clear that Castillo Blanco was your priority," Aurora said, her voice tight. "The night you told me you were taking over the company instead of starting Castillo Blanco with me, you said, and I quote, 'Some dreams have to die so others can live.' Remember?" "Yes, I remember." He had been so sure he was doing the right thing, following in his father's footsteps, securing their future. Their future, he had thought at the time. He hadn't known that future was already forming inside her. 3 little lives that would inherit his gray eyes and her tenacious spirit. 3 weeks after that night, Aurora continued, her voice barely audible. "I found out I was pregnant with triplets. I went to your office to tell you." Charles's stomach clenched. He knew exactly what she was going to say next. The memory of that day had haunted him for years, though for completely different reasons than he had imagined. "But you were in a board meeting," she finished for him, her voice hoarse. And your assistant told me you were too busy to see anyone, not even me, that you had told them not to disturb you under any circumstances. Camila exhaled softly as Valeria's hand found her mother's under the table. Sophia's perfect posture faltered for the first time as she looked at her parents. "You never came back," Charles said, and the realization hit him like a punch. "That was the last time you tried to contact me." "What would have been the point?" Aurora asked, and now the tears were flowing freely. "You had made your decision. Your father's company. Your legacy. I wasn't going to trap you in a life you hadn't chosen." The silence that followed was only broken by the soft clinking of fine china at nearby tables. Charles looked at his hands spread out on the immaculate white tablecloth, trying to grasp the magnitude of what he had lost, with a simple order to his assistant. "No interruptions." "You thought you were protecting me," he said slowly, looking at Aurora. "By not telling me, you thought you were freeing me to pursue my ambitions? Weren't those ambitions worth more to you than anything else?" The bitterness in her voice was tinged with an old pain. "The great Charles Sterling, following in his father's footsteps, building an empire." "An empty empire," he replied, his voice breaking. "Do you know what I did with Castillo Blanco? Our plans?" All four of them looked at him with identical curiosity. Even Sophia seemed to forget her perfect posture as she leaned forward slightly. "I built it anyway, 3 years ago. Not as our chain of coffee shops, but as a charitable foundation. It funds arts education and business training for underprivileged youth, because every time I passed a coffee shop, I remembered our dream. I remembered you." Aurora brought her hand to her mouth. "The Castillo Blanco Foundation. It's yours." "It's mine," she confirmed, and then looked at the girls. "And now I suppose it's theirs, too." Valeria's analytical mind was clearly racing, in addition to everything else. "The foundation that funded our school's new performing arts center. It's named after Mom." "It's named after both of you," Charles said softly. "Castillo Blanco." I never stopped thinking about what we could have built together. Camila, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly spoke. "Mom cries every time she reads about the foundation in the newspaper. She keeps all the articles in her—" "Camila," Sophia interrupted, showing a protectiveness that tugged at Charles's heart. These girls had grown up watching their mother carry this burden alone. "No, it's okay," Aurora said, dabbing her eyes with her napkin. "They should know. I kept all the articles because I wanted you girls to know that Mr. Sterling, does good things in the world. That it's not just about profit margins and corporate takeovers." "But you never told him about us," Valeria said, a hint of accusation in her voice. "We could have known him. We could have been part of that good work." "Would you have wanted that?" Charles asked suddenly, looking at each girl in turn. "To know me? To be part of my life? We already are, in a way," Sophia replied diplomatically. "Our mother made sure we knew about Blanco Technologies' environmental initiatives. We follow your company's charitable works. We even—" she glanced at her sisters, who nodded encouragingly. "Even bought shares in the company with our allowance last year. 1 share each." Charles felt his heart swell. "Your shareholders, very small ones," Valeria clarified. "But we wanted to own a piece of your world, even if you didn't know about us." "I would have given you the world," Charles whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Everything I've built, everything I am. It would have been yours. It should have been yours." "And now," Camila asked, her usual bubbly curiosity replaced by an almost desperate hope, "could it be ours now?" Aurora took her daughter's hand, but Charles spoke first. "It already is. Whether you want it or not, whether you're ready or not, everything I have is yours. My name, my company, my foundation, and my heart. If you want it." Aurora's breath hitched. "Charles, you can't just—" "Can't just what?" His voice was soft but firm. "Can't just offer my daughters what is rightfully theirs? Can't just try to make up for 9 lost years? It's not that simple, Aurora protested. But Sophia interrupted her with an uncharacteristic emotion in her usually controlled voice. Why not? She asked, her perfect composure cracking a little. We've spent our whole lives knowing half of who we are, reading about our father in business magazines, watching his interviews on CNBC, pretending we're only interested in the business success stories. She paused, recomposing herself. When we just wanted to know if we inherited our love for numbers from him or from you. The numbers are definitely from him, Aurora said softly, a small smile playing on her lips. I was always the creative one. But both are in us, Valeria observed, her analytical mind working overtime. Like when Camila acts. She has your dramatic flair, Mom, but Dad's strategic thinking when approaching each role. The word Dad hung in the air like a fragile soap bubble, and Charles's heart skipped a beat at hearing it for the first time. And when Sophia runs student council meetings, Camila added, enthusiastic about the topic. She uses Mom's teaching techniques, but Dad's negotiation strategies. We've watched all your TED Talks, Dad, Sophia added, looking at Charles slightly flushed. All of them? Charles asked, his voice thick with emotion. Valeria confirmed several times. We've analyzed your speaking patterns, your management philosophies, your approach to corporate responsibility. It's like we've been studying for an exam we never thought we'd take. The waiter approached again, looking unsure. Would you like to order? Yes, Sophia said decisively, taking charge again. I think we all need a moment to properly review the menus, and perhaps, she added with a meaningful look at her mother, consider new possibilities. As everyone picked up their menus, Charles noticed that Aurora's hands were trembling slightly. He wanted to reach out and calm them, as he used to before her drama performances in college. But he no longer had that right. Oh, Aurora, he said quietly as the girls debated appetizers. I know this is overwhelming for everyone, but they are extraordinary. You did an incredible job raising them, and if you'll let me, I would like to spend the rest of my life trying to deserve them, trying to deserve you. We can't just erase 9 years, she whispered. No, he agreed. But maybe we can build something new, something even better than Castillo Blanco. Before Aurora could respond, Camilla's voice interrupted with her characteristic enthusiasm. Mom, they have your favorite chocolate soufflé for dessert. Remember you said it reminded you of your first date? She stopped abruptly, looking at her parents with wide eyes. Oh, with Dad. Here, in this restaurant. The memory hit them both at the same time. Their first date at the Eden, barely affordable on their grad student budgets, sharing the same soufflé because they could only afford one dessert between them. Had Aurora been coming here all these years, ordering the same dessert, keeping that memory alive? Her gaze told him everything he needed to know. If you're enjoying this video and want more content like this, subscribe and turn on the notification bell. That way, you won't miss any of the incredible stories we'll be posting soon. Your support greatly helps the channel grow and allows us to bring you more of what you love. Thank you. The waiter returned to take their order, creating a brief respite from the emotional intensity. Charles couldn't help but notice how each girl ordered. Valeria, requesting detailed information about the preparation methods. Camila choosing with impulsive enthusiasm. And Sophia negotiating a subtle menu modification with diplomatic skill. Like a board meeting, he murmured, earning an inquisitive look from Aurora. The analyst, the innovator, and the negotiator. They're like the perfect corporate team. They're not a corporate team, Aurora said sharply, and then softened. They're just girls. They're girls who need to be allowed to just be girls. Charles nodded slowly. You're right. I'm sorry. I think I'm trying to find ways to connect with them through the only world I've known for the past 9 years. We don't mind, Valeria interjected, who had clearly been listening. In fact, I wanted to ask you about your recent shift towards sustainable technology investments. The market analysis you published last quarter suggested— Valeria, Aurora interrupted gently. Perhaps we could save the business conversation for— For when? Sophia challenged, surprising everyone with her intensity. For another 9 years? Mom, we've spent our lives tiptoeing around this, around him, around who we are. Maybe it's time to stop pretending we're just 3 random talented students from Wellington High. Camilla nodded vigorously. Yeah. You know how hard it is to pretend we don't notice when business newspapers have Dad's picture on the cover? Or when other kids talk about the Castillo Blanco Foundation's latest project? Or when Grandma Sterling tells us we have our father's business sense but refuses to say anything else about him? Only by accident, Sophia clarified. Usually, after her second glass of wine at Christmas dinners, she keeps a picture of you and Mom from college in her study, but she turns it face down every time we visit. The mention of Margaret Sterling brought another wave of memories. Her unwavering support for his relationship with Aurora in college, her devastation when they broke up. He had always wondered if she knew about the girls, if she had played a part in the decision to keep them from him. She never forgave me, he said quietly, for choosing the company over her daughter. Over all of us, Aurora corrected, but now her voice sounded less harsh. Though I suppose we didn't give you a chance to choose otherwise. Would you have chosen differently? Camilla asked suddenly. If you had known about us. The question hung in the air like a sustained note in a symphony. Charles looked at each of their faces, those extraordinary girls who carried his DNA, but who had been molded by Aurora's love and guidance. He thought of the lonely years at the top of Blanco Technology, the empty victory of each successful merger, the empty penthouse he returned to each night. In a heartbeat, he answered, his voice rough with conviction. Everything I've built, everything I've achieved, means nothing compared to what I missed with you. With all of you. Aurora audibly caught her breath, and he saw tears welling in her eyes again. The girls exchanged glances, a kind of silent communication between them. Well, Sophia said, straightening her silverware with deliberate precision. Perhaps it's not too late to make a different decision. The arrival of the appetizers provided a moment of normalcy in the surreal evening. Charles watched as Valeria methodically photographed her plate for research purposes, while Camilla dove in with enthusiasm, and Sophia waited for everyone to start before taking her first bite. So, Charles ventured, you're all in Seattle, at Wellington High. Not for long, Camilla said eagerly, and quickly covered her mouth when Sophia shot her a warning look. Oops, Aurora sighed, putting down her fork. We were going to announce this tonight. Before all of this, I was offered a position as the head of creative arts and business education at Riverside Academy, here in New York. Charles's heart skipped a beat. Riverside? That's 10 minutes from Blanco Technology headquarters. We know, Valeria said meaningfully. We thoroughly researched the school's location in relation to various points of interest in the city. The girls were accepted into their gifted program, and Aurora gradually joined in. Full scholarships! We were planning to move here this summer before the new school year. The past tense immediately caught Charles's attention. Mom, surely this doesn't change our plans. If anything, Valeria interjected, the proximity to both parents could provide enhanced opportunities for academic and personal growth. Camilla nodded enthusiastically. Besides, their drama department is amazing, and they have a business innovation club that works directly with real companies. And she trailed off, looking at him hopefully. And perhaps, she said carefully, they might be interested in working with the Castillo Blanco Foundation, or even Blanco Technology's youth mentorship program. Charles, Aurora warned, but he could see the resolve weakening in her eyes. I'm not trying to buy their affection, he said quickly, but these programs exist. They're designed precisely for the kind of bright young minds I see at this table. Their father, Aurora repeated softly, testing the words. It's still so strange to hear it out loud. Strange but true, Sophia declared with her characteristic diplomacy. And as the elected student body president of my school, I can state with some authority that refusing to acknowledge the truth rarely leads to productive outcomes. Valeria put down her fork with scientific precision. I've been analyzing the variables influencing our potential relocation, the academic opportunities, the cultural advantages, the proximity to extended family, including newly discovered family. She glanced at Charles. The data strongly supports the decision, and I've already memorized my audition monologue for Riverside's drama club, Camilla added. It's from that play you did with Mom in college. Mom? The Glass Menagerie. Aurora's hand trembled as she picked up her water glass. You found our old program in your memory box, the three girls said in unison, and then laughed at their synchronicity. That memory box has a lot to say, Charles said with a small smile, and then turned serious. But perhaps it was about saving these memories until we were ready to face them, until we were ready to create new ones. Mom keeps saying we shouldn't live in the past, Sophia pointed out. That we should always look forward, plan for the future. The future, Charles repeated thoughtfully. You know, I've spent 9 years planning a future. I thought I wanted board meetings, acquisitions, expansions. But sitting here now, looking at all of you, I realize I've been planning the wrong future all along. The main courses arrived, steaming and artfully presented, but no one seemed particularly interested in the food. Charles watched as Aurora, unconsciously, smoothed Camilla's napkin, a maternal instinct he hadn't seen develop. I have a confession to make, he said, suddenly causing all 4 of them to look up from their Tuesday night dinner reservation. It wasn't just a habit. I kept it because… She paused, gathering her courage. Because this was our night, a date every Tuesday for 2 years in college. I guess I never let it go. Just like my mother never gave up on the coffee shop dream, Valeria observed. She has 3 different business plans in her desk, each updated to current market conditions. Aurora blushed. You went through my desk? For research purposes, Sophia clarified diplomatically. We were trying to understand everything. Everything we missed, Charles said quietly. Everything I missed. First steps, first words, first business proposals, Camilla added with a grin. We tried to sell lemonade futures in the yard last year. Futures. Charles couldn't help but laugh. How did that work out? We cornered the market by pre-selling to the teachers, Valeria explained. Then we reinvested the profits in a cookie venture that Sophia negotiated with the school cafeteria, Camilla added proudly. The profit margins were quite respectable, Sophia said, straightening up. Though Mom made us donate most of it to the school library. Aurora shook her head, but she was smiling. I should have known they inherited that entrepreneurial spirit from you. They've been running small businesses since they were 6, Charles said, his voice cracking slightly. 6. What was your first venture? The girls exchanged glances before Valeria answered. We sold friendship bracelets, but with a twist. We offered an insurance policy. If the friendship ended, they could return the bracelet and get store credit. Store credit? Charles looked at Aurora in amazement. At 6 years old, they implemented a whole return policy system, she confirmed, with a customer satisfaction survey included. The data helped us improve our product line, Valeria explained seriously. Charles felt tears pricking his eyes again. They were so much like him, but so uniquely them. So shaped by Aurora's guidance, but with his business instincts in their DNA. I want to know everything, he said suddenly, his voice intense. Every business, every play, every science project. I want to know about their first day of school, their favorite books, their biggest dreams. He looked at Aurora pleadingly. I want to be their father, not just biologically, but their dad, if you'll let me. We want that too, Sophia said softly, speaking for all 3 girls. We've already achieved so much, but… She looked at her sisters, who nodded encouragingly. But we've always felt like there was a vital member missing from our board of directors in our lives. That's a very professional way to put it, Aurora said, but her voice was gentle. Well, we are Sterlings, Camila pointed out. Even though we've been using the last name Castillo, the silence that followed was charged with possibilities. Charles looked at Aurora, really looked at her, seeing both the girl he had loved in college and the strong woman who had raised their daughters alone. What if, he said slowly, we stopped letting the fear of the past dictate our future? What if we took all this love, all this potential, and built something new? Not just fancy coffee shops, but something bigger. A family. If you're enjoying this video and want more content like this, subscribe and turn on the notification bell. This way you won't miss any of the incredible stories we'll be posting soon. Your support greatly helps the channel grow and allows us to bring you more of what you love. Thank you. Aurora dabbed her eyes with her napkin, composing herself before speaking. A family isn't built as easily as a business. It requires time, trust, and patience. Like a long-term investment, Valeria offered, earning a small smile from both parents. Exactly, Aurora agreed. And while I appreciate your enthusiasm, we need to think about what's best for the girls. We're right here, Sophia reminded them gently. And we're old enough to have a say in this corporate merger. Charles couldn't help but chuckle at their words. You're right. Perhaps we should put it to a vote. Democratic process and all that. Like a shareholders meeting. Camila bounced in her seat. Since we're all shareholders now. Minority shareholders, Valeria reminded her sister. But she was smiling too. Well, Sophia said, straightening up even further. If it's permissible, as the interim chairwoman of this meeting, I propose we discuss the practicalities of integrating the CEO of Blanco Technology into our family structure. Seconded, Valeria added, immediately pulling out her phone. I've already started a list of pros and cons. Hold on, Aurora interrupted. But now there was a hint of amusement in her voice. This isn't something we can vote on over dinner. Why not? Camila asked. We've been waiting 9 years. Isn't that enough market research? Charles leaned forward, his voice soft but urgent. Aurora, look at them. They are brilliant, thoughtful, and clearly capable of understanding complex situations. They have been observing me from afar all this time, trying to get to know their father through news and annual reports. Don't they deserve the opportunity to really know me? And you don't deserve to know them, he replied softly. The real me, not just his achievements and business ventures, but his fears, his doubts, his messy mornings, and his grumpy evenings. Everything, he said with firmness. I want it all. The good days and the bad days, the successes and the failures, the science fairs and the scraped knees. I have a scar from falling off my bike, Camila offered helpfully. Want to see? Not at the table, darling, Aurora said automatically, and then caught herself, resorting to familiar parenting patterns in front of Charles. The reality of what sharing these moments would mean seemed to hit her hard. I have a proposal, Sophia announced, pulling out a small notebook. A phased integration plan, so to speak, starting with weekly family dinners to establish a base level of compatibility, followed by scheduled activities aligned with our individual interests. Valeria continued, quickly adapting. I have several scientific hypotheses I'd like to discuss from a fresh perspective. I need help with my Dorothy monologue, Camila added. Mom says you were an amazing wizard in college, Dad. The word dad still sent a jolt through Charles, but this time it was accompanied by a wave of joy instead of pain. He looked at Aurora, trying to convey everything he felt with his eyes. It's evident they inherited your planning skills, he said quietly, and my determination. A dangerous combination, she agreed with a smile. One that will be impossible to resist. We know, the three girls said in unison, and then burst into giggles. The dessert menus arrived. and without further discussion, everyone knew what they would order. The chocolate soufflé that held so many memories. While they waited for it to be prepared, the conversation took a serious turn. "There's something else you should know," Aurora said, her fingers tracing the stem of her water glass. "Something I've never told anyone, not even the girls." All four of them leaned forward slightly, impressed by the gravity of her voice. "The day I found out I was pregnant, I didn't just try to tell you once. I went to your office 3 times that week. Each time your assistant told me you were too busy. The third time, I saw you through the glass walls of your office, shaking hands with your father's board members." Charles felt the color drain from his face. "The week of the merger announcement, when we were taking the company private. You looked so satisfied, so sure of your path," she continued. "I watched you for 10 minutes, standing in the lobby, with one hand on my stomach, where our daughters were growing. You didn't look up from your papers, didn't glance towards the lobby where I was waiting. That's when I knew." "Knew what?" Sophia asked softly, losing her usual composure. "That I couldn't be the one to ruin your dreams. Your father was sick. The company needed you. And a pregnancy, especially one as complicated as mine." Aurora's voice broke slightly. "I thought I was being noble, giving you the freedom to become who you were meant to be." "But both were meant to be our parents," Valeria said, her analytical tone giving way to emotion. "According to my calculations, the probability of a successful co-parenting arrangement would have been significantly higher with both parties involved from the outset." "Well said, sister," Camilla said, wiping away tears. Charles leaned across the table, hesitated for a moment, then gently took Aurora's hand. She didn't pull away. "Do you know what I was reading in those newspapers that day?" he asked quietly. She shook her head. "Expansion plans for a chain of coffee shops. I was trying to figure out how to buy and renovate some struggling cafes, turn them into what we dreamed of with Castillo Blanco. I thought if I could make it successful quickly enough, maybe I'd be forgiven for choosing the company first. I was going to surprise you with it." "Oh," Aurora breathed, understanding dawning in her eyes. "I've spent 9 years building someone else's dream, thinking I'd lost mine." His grip on her hand tightened slightly. "But my dream wasn't just about coffee shops and business plans. It was about building something with you. And now?" "Now there's so much more to build," Sophia said, her voice thick with emotion. "Together," Valeria added firmly. "As a family," Camilla concluded, with her characteristic enthusiasm. The soufflé arrived at the perfect moment, steaming from its dark, rich surface, just as it had 9 years ago, when 2 college graduates shared their dreams over dessert. "I propose an amendment to the integration plan," Sophia announced, sitting up straighter as she fought back tears. "Starting now? Not next week. Not after a period of adequate analysis, now." "Seconded," Valeria said immediately, her eyes suspiciously bright. "All in favor?" Camilla asked, raising her hand. 4 more hands joined hers without hesitation as they shared the soufflé. 5 spoons this time, instead of 2. Javier approached their table, looking apologetic. "I'm sorry, Miss Castillo, Mr. Sterling, but it's almost closing time." They all looked up in surprise. Somehow the hours had flown by like minutes. The restaurant was almost empty, the city lights twinkling through the windows, where the sunset colors had been at the beginning. "Time flows differently when you're rewriting your future," Sophia observed. "Philosophically speaking, of course," Valeria added, pulling out her phone. "I've prepared a preliminary schedule of family activities, taking into account everyone's current commitments and optimal opportunities for bonding." "And I already told all my friends I'm getting a dad," Camilla announced, nearly making Aurora drop her spoon. "When you sent the group text," Sophia clarified. "Very efficient, though perhaps a bit premature." Charles laughed, a deep, heartfelt laugh that made all 4 of them smile. "Well, I guess that saves us the trouble of a formal announcement." "What exactly are we announcing?" Aurora asked slowly. "It's not just about you meeting the girls, Charles. This is everything. She squeezed his hand, and this time he returned the gesture. Everything is exactly what I want. The company, the foundation, this family. They don't have to be separate dreams anymore. They can be one dream, built together with proper corporate oversight, Sophia added seriously, prompting laughter from everyone. And regular board meetings, Valeria suggested. And family game nights, Camila added. Every successful company needs team-building activities. As they gathered their things to leave, Charles paused for a moment, observing his new family. The girls were already planning the next day's activities with excited voices. Aurora watched them with a mixture of love and awe, as if seeing them from a new perspective. "You know," he said quietly, turning to her, "I always thought my father's greatest lesson was about business. Success is built on relationships," he used to say. But I was wrong for so long. He wasn't talking about business relationships. He was talking about this. He gestured to his daughters. About family. The most important merger of all, Aurora agreed. A meaningful ending. As they walked out of the Eden together, as a family for the first time, the moral of their story was clear. Sometimes, the biggest mistakes in life come from trying to protect others from our love, rather than having the courage to share it. Success isn't measured in dollars or achievements, but in the connections we forge and the love we're willing to fight for. It's never too late to correct course, to choose love over fear, to turn missed opportunities into new beginnings. The best investments we can make aren't in stocks or companies, but in the hearts of those we love. Thank you all for watching this incredible story. Don't forget to like, comment with your thoughts on this family's journey, and share this video with someone who needs to hear its message. Remember, it's never too late for love to find its way home. See you in the next video.